Hey guys, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 bringing to you another edition of the Wrestling Discussion Series. And today I thought we'd talk about Stone Cold Steve Austin's Broken Skull sessions, and I'd like to compile a list of the guests I would like to see appear on the show. And ever since the Broken Skull sessions made its debut in 2019, Stone Cold Steve Austin, in my opinion, is an amazing host, and he's had some incredible guests appear on the show. Guys like Chris Jericho, who is currently competing in AEW, and he's also had other guests like Randy Orton, which I thought was one of the best shows ever. He's also had Kurt Angle appear on there, which was a lot of fun, and he's also had the legendary Undertaker, which really helped kick this off, and he's appeared on there not once but twice for one more round back in November 2020. And he's had other guests like the Godfather, aka Charles Wright, and of course the one and only, the legendary Nature Boy Ric Flair. So I've decided to put together my top 10 choices of who I would like to see appear on the Broken Skull sessions, and we're going to start with my first choice at number 10, and this is the guy I would like to see appear on the next edition of the Broken Skull sessions, and that's Scott Hall. Now, Scott Hall and Stone Cold Steve Austin have a history. When the NWO were brought into the WWE back in 2002, Stone Cold worked with Scott Hall at WrestleMania 18, and as we all know, Stone Cold defeated him. But there were stories going around at the time that Scott Hall was originally supposed to go over. So I think that would make for an interesting edition of the Broken Skull sessions, and maybe hear from Scott Hall's point of view what exactly happened during that time in 2002 and the period that Steve Austin and Hall worked together. And also, Scott Hall is one of the biggest names in wrestling. He was a part of the first ladder match at WrestleMania 10 with Shawn Michaels. He's a four-time Intercontinental Champion and a founding member of the NWO. So you can imagine the kind of stories that Scott Hall has. And I think that would make for a very interesting addition to the Broken Skull sessions. And also, you know, Stone Cold and Scott Hall have both been in WCW at different points. So I'd like to hear their thoughts on what they thought of the company and how it worked for both of them during their careers. And my next choice at number 9 to appear on Stone Cold Steve Austin's Broken Skull sessions is none other than the Animal, Batista. Now, Batista has always been known as a humble guy and never afraid of speaking his mind and being very blunt and honest about certain things. And to me, Batista is one of the most outspoken guys in wrestling. He's not afraid to speak his mind, and if he isn't happy with something or he doesn't like something, he'll just tell it like it is, and he doesn't care. And I think he would make an excellent guest on the Broken Skull sessions. Now, Stone Cold and Batista have not really had much interactions with each other. The most that we saw with these two was back in 2003 when Batista was a part of Evolution and Stone Cold was the co-GM of Raw with Eric Bischoff. And we saw these two have a little interaction. They had a little brawl on Raw, and that was the most we got, and one little backstage segment. And I think with these two together, I think it could make for a hell of a show. And, you know, Batista, he retired from WWE back in 2019 at WrestleMania when he lost to Triple H. And he's now a big movie star. He's starred in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's appeared in both Avengers films back-to-back, Infinity War and Endgame. He was also in James Bond, Spectre. You know, Batista is a very busy man, and it would be great to hear from him what he's been up to, what his thoughts are on the current state of the company, his thoughts on his time with Evolution, you know, all those things. I think there would be a lot of ground to cover, and I think Batista would make for an excellent guest. You know, he's one of my favourites. I've always respected his honesty and his opinion about things, and I think, you know, to have him on the WWE Network as Steve Austin's next guest on the Broken Skull sessions could be a lot of fun. And, you know, what can you really say about Batista? He's a legend. He's done it all. Royal Rumble winner in 2005, former world champion, WWE champion, tag team champion. Batista has done it all, and he's one of the biggest names in wrestling. So I definitely would like to see him appear on the Broken Skull sessions one day. I think he'd make an amazing guest. Number 8 for my next choice to appear on the Broken Skull sessions is the tribal chief himself, aka the head of the table, Roman Reigns. Now, ever since Roman Reigns turned heel in the summer of 2020 and hooked up with Paul Heyman, Roman Reigns, in my opinion, has delivered some of his best work in his career as a heel. And I've always said that Roman Reigns is a natural heel and he just works so much better in that role. And in recent years, Roman Reigns has always been a polarizing figure. The WWE were always trying to push him as a babyface, but the fans rejected him and he would just get constantly booed throughout the building wherever he went. But ever since he reinvented himself and became the tribal chief / head of the table, Roman Reigns, to me, is one of the best things going in WWE right now. This new character of his is a real breath of fresh air, and I've just enjoyed watching him work. And I think having him on Stone Cold's Broken Skull Sessions, I think would make for an interesting show. I'd like to hear what Roman Reigns thinks about turning heel, his relationship with Paul Heyman. There's lots of things I'd like to hear because, Roman Reigns, whether people like it or not, he's a big star. He's on a roll right now. And I'd just like to hear his thoughts. He's a man of few words. He very rarely ever does interviews. I have seen him do a few interviews, but not many. So I'd like to hear Stone Cold pick his brains about certain things. And I just think it would make for a great show, in my opinion. So Roman Reigns, I would love to see on the Broken Skull Sessions next. He's a great wrestler, got a great look, and in my opinion, he's one of the best heels in the company right now. So WWE, if you're listening, make Roman Reigns appear next on the Broken Skull Sessions. Book it now. And number 7 for my next choice to appear on the Broken Skull Sessions is The Man, Becky Lynch. Now, currently, at the moment, Becky Lynch has been on maternity leave ever since she had a baby, and as we all know, she is married to Seth Rollins, and we know that she is scheduled to return quite soon. So I think this would be a great opportunity to have her on the Broken Skull Sessions and see what she's been up to. And I've heard some people say that her personality is very similar to Stone Cold's in terms of the whole anti-authority thing. I'm not sure I fully agree with that, but it would be a subject I would like to hear Steve Austin and Becky Lynch address together. I think that could make for some interesting TV. And I'd also like to hear her thoughts on being married to Seth Rollins, her coming up in NXT, her rivalries with Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey. There's lots of ground they could cover. So I would definitely love to hear Becky Lynch's thoughts on that, and I'd love to see her appear on the show. I think she's very outspoken, very honest, and I think she's just a fun chick to be around, and I think her appearing on the Broken Skull Sessions could be a lot of fun. So I would definitely like to see her as the next guest on Stone Cold's show on the WWE Network, especially with her coming back very soon. I think now is as good a time as any to make it happen. So definitely like to see the man on Stone Cold's show. So I say make it happen. And since we're talking about Becky Lynch, at number 6, my next choice is Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins made his official debut on the main roster in 2012 at Survivor Series as part of The Shield with Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns. And he's been a heel, he's been a babyface, he's been part of the Authority with Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. And he's been a Universal Champion, Money in the Bank winner, you name it. Seth Rollins has done it all. And to me, in my opinion, Seth Rollins is one of the best heels in the company right now, and he's just a natural in that role. I was never really a fan of him as a babyface because to me, it just kind of felt forced. He's much more diabolical and much more devious as a heel, and he's a true master of drawing heat, and he knows how to get under people's skins. And not since the days of CM Punk and Shawn Michaels have I seen a guy who's so arrogant but can back it up in the ring quite like Seth Rollins. And I think he'd make a great guest on Stone Cold's Broken Skull Sessions. I don't think they've had much interactions with each other as far as I know. And I think I'd like to see Steve Austin pick his brains about a lot of things. His days with The Shield, his relationship with Becky Lynch, of course, who is his wife. There's all sorts of things I'd like to hear him talk about. How does he feel about the company right now, his position? There's lots of things you can speak to Seth Rollins about. His knee injury that he sustained in 2015. betraying the Shield, what that did for him for his career. There's lots of things you can pick his brains about. And, Seth Rollins is one of those guys. He's very outspoken. He's not afraid to speak his mind, even if it does rub people up the wrong way at times. But, Seth Rollins, to me, is one of the best workers in the company right now, and I'd love to see him appear on the show. So, just like I said with Roman Reigns earlier, make it happen. Get him on there. Love to hear what he's got to say. Number 5 for my next choice is Eric Bischoff. Now, Eric Bischoff, as we all know, was the vice president of WCW, and he was an announcer for WCW Nitro, and he came up with the idea for the NWO, and he was a big part in WCW Nitro beating WWE Raw for 84 straight weeks. So that's definitely a guy I'd like to see on the show, and I'd love to hear his thoughts on the whole Monday Night War thing, and I'd love to see Steve Austin pick his brains, because, Steve Austin isn't afraid to ask the questions that people are afraid of asking, and Bischoff is one of those guys. He's not afraid to speak his mind. If he doesn't like something, or if he's not happy with something, he's just going to be blunt and just tell it like it is. And I'd like to hear his thoughts about Vince McMahon hiring him to be the Raw GM in 2002, his book on Controversy Creates Cash. There's lots of things you can pick his brains about. And, Bischoff, whether you like the man or not, he's a very clever guy. He knows his stuff, and as I said, he was a big part of that late 90s boom period of professional wrestling, and I think he'd make an excellent guest on the Broken Skull sessions. And I can definitely see something like that happening quite soon, because, Bischoff isn't doing a lot at the moment. He's kind of keeping his head down. He does make sporadic appearances here and there. He just recently went into the WWE Hall of Fame. So this is as good a time as any to get him on the show. Just see what he's been up to, really, and hear him tell some stories, because, a guy like him, he's got lots of stories to tell. And that, to me, makes him the ideal guest. So, once again, make it happen. I'd love to see Bischoff on the show. And not just that, him and Austin have got history as well, so you can also delve into that as well. So there's lots of stories you can pick his brains about. And just like I said before, WWE, make it happen. And my next choice at number 4 is the man himself, the one and only John Bradshaw Layfield, JBL. Now, JBL has been around for a long time. He debuted in 1995 as Justin Hawk Bradshaw, but he didn't make his television debut till 1996 when he faced The Undertaker on Monday Night Raw the day after WrestleMania 12. And he's had a number of different characters over the years. He's been Blackjack Bradshaw, he was Hell's Henchman with Farouk, aka Ron Simmons. He was also a part of the Ministry of Darkness with The Undertaker as the Acolytes. He later went on to become one half of the APA. Then he reinvented himself again and became JBL, and he became the longest reigning WWE champion on SmackDown. And he's faced all the greats, from Booker T to Big Show to Kurt Angle to Eddie Guerrero to The Undertaker to John Cena to Rey Mysterio. JBL has seen it all and done it all, and he recently retired and he went into the WWE Hall of Fame. So I think that's definitely a guy you can have on the show. And plus, they're both native Texans, and I'd love to hear them talk a bit about everything: college football, professional wrestling, his relationship with The Undertaker, being a commentator. There's lots of things you can delve into and pick Bradshaw's brains about. And it's kind of funny, because Bradshaw started out as a mid-carder, then he became part of the tag team with Ron Simmons, then he became part of the Ministry of Darkness. You can imagine the stories this guy's got to tell, so he would make an excellent guest on the Broken Skull sessions, and I'm quite surprised it hasn't happened yet. So once again, I think it should happen. I think JBL would make a great guest, and I think him and Austin could have tons of stories to tell each other, because they've been around near enough the same time. I think Austin's been around maybe slightly longer as far as wrestling is concerned, but there's not a lot in it. So I definitely think JBL should appear on the Broken Skull sessions, and it's something I can definitely see happening quite soon. And plus, JBL is a funny guy anyway, so that makes it even better. And my next choice at number 3 is none other than Shane O'Mac himself, Shane McMahon. Now, Shane McMahon, as we all know, is a McMahon, and as we all know, his father, Vince McMahon, appeared on the podcast. So I think it makes sense to have his son on there. And plus, Shane McMahon, he's seen it all, done it all. He's been a part of the Attitude Era, the Ruthless Aggression Era, and beyond that. And Shane McMahon is one of the ultimate risk takers in wrestling. He always puts his body on the line, and he's had some incredible matches over the years, and he's a hell of a wrestler, and he's got lots of stories to tell, you can imagine. And I'd like to hear him talk about why he left WWE in 2009 and what's made him come back in 2016. So, there's lots of stories there that could be addressed. And, Shane McMahon has had history with Austin. He was a big part of the Austin-McMahon feud in 1998 to 99. So there's definitely some history that they can delve into. And I love Shane McMahon. I think Shane McMahon is one of the best. He's not the greatest wrestler in the world. He can wrestle. I think he's lost a little step in recent years, but that's normal because he's much older now. And, I'd like to hear what he's got to say about the current state of the company and how he feels about the Triple H and Stephanie McMahon marriage/relationship. So there's lots of things to delve into. And I think Shane McMahon, he's another one of those guys. He's very honest, not afraid to speak his mind. And I've never heard anything bad about him. He's a nice guy from what I've seen and the stories I've heard from other people. So I think he would make an excellent guest to appear on the Broken Skull Sessions. And he's another one. I can definitely see him appearing on the show quite soon. So WWE, make it happen. And my next choice at number 2 is going to surprise some people, but I would love to see him appear on the show, and that's Montel Vontavious Porter, aka MVP. Now, when MVP made his return a few years ago, everybody thought that he was just going to make one appearance and then he was going to be gone. Well, fast forward now to 2021, and I can honestly say he's been a real breath of fresh air for WWE, specifically for Bobby Lashley, and a lot of the success that Bobby Lashley has achieved and is currently experiencing at the moment, I would say a lot of that is down to MVP. He's been a real help to him for his career, and he's been a mentor to him, and he's really helped get him over, and he's currently, at the moment, the WWE Universal Champion, and a lot of that is down to MVP. And the two of them formed the Hurt Business, and to me, I thought that was one of the best factions in recent memory, and it's a shame they cut it short. I think it still had a lot of legs in it, but it is what it is. But MVP, to me, he's done an excellent job with Bobby Lashley in the last few months. And I'd love to hear him on the Broken Skull Sessions just talk about that, what he's done for Lashley, what he's doing at the moment, what his plans are next. And MVP is so criminally underrated. He never gets enough credit. I think he was an amazing wrestler when he debuted in 2006. He was a great heel, and he can work. He's got a great mind, and I love what he's done with Lashley, and I think he'd make a great guest on the Broken Skull Sessions. And I don't think the two of them have had any interactions, him and Austin. I'd like to see that change. I'd love to see Austin pick his brains about things, and MVP's obviously he's got stories to tell, and he's not been around as long as somebody like JBL or Batista, but he's been there a long time. People forget that. So definitely a guy I like to see on the Broken Skull Sessions, and quite soon. So, like I always say, make it happen, WWE. And finally, my number 1 choice to appear on the Broken Skull Sessions, we all know who it is. It's none other than the great one himself, the People's Champion, The Rock. And it goes without saying that The Rock is quite possibly Austin's greatest rival, and they had quite possibly the most iconic rivalry of the Attitude Era, second only to Austin and McMahon. And, they've had a trilogy of WrestleMania matches, WrestleMania 15, WrestleMania 17, and of course WrestleMania 19, which was Austin's final match. And, The Rock is currently the biggest name in Hollywood, the highest paid actor. The Rock is just a household name. So it's going to be a bit hard to get someone like him on the Broken Skull sessions due to his schedule, but I'd love to see it happen, and I'd love to hear the two of them pick each other's brains about the Attitude Era, how they first met, Rock's thoughts on being Austin's final opponent in his retirement match at WrestleMania 19. These guys have got tons of stories to share, and I'd love to hear it. And these two were such a big part of the Attitude Era, and especially of my wrestling childhood, and just to have The Rock on the Broken Skull sessions would be a massive deal. So I definitely would like to see it, but as I said, it's going to be a little bit tricky, but it's not impossible. Nothing is impossible. Anything can happen, you never know, but The Rock is definitely my number one choice. I would like to see appear on the Broken Skull sessions, and I think there is a possibility it could happen. But again, we'll just have to wait and see, really. But this is something that I would definitely love to see happen one day. And you never know. Never say never in WWE. Anything can happen. And there you have it, guys. Those are my top 10 choices for who I would like to see appear on the Broken Skull sessions. So, what do you guys think? Would you go with these top 10 choices for the Broken Skull sessions? Or do you have your own top 10 list of who you'd like to see appear? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time. So until then, take care everybody and stay safe, and once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening, and I'll see all of you next time.